The old railroad bridge creaked under their feet, a haunting melody of rust and time. Abby and Libby giggled, their laughter echoing across the ravine, unaware of the shadow that lurked nearby. It was supposed to be an ordinary day off from school, a chance to explore and take photos. But as the late winter sun began to dip, casting long shadows across Monon High Bridge, the girls' adventure would take a sinister turn that would shake the small town of Delphi to its core. February 13, 2017. A date that would be forever etched in the memory of Carroll County, Indiana. Detective Jerry Holman's phone rang, shattering the quiet of his office. Two young girls, Abigail Williams and Liberty German, had failed to return from a hiking trip. As night fell, a sense of dread settled over the community, thick and suffocating. Holman knew that every passing hour diminished the chances of finding the girls alive. The search began in earnest, volunteers combing through the dense woods surrounding the creek. But hope turned to horror the next day when two bodies were discovered less than a mile from the bridge. The idyllic town of Delphi, once known for its picturesque trails and friendly faces, was now the center of a gruesome double homicide that would baffle investigators for years. As Holman stood over the crime scene, a chill ran down his spine. The killer had been meticulous, leaving few traces behind. But there was one piece of evidence that would prove crucial: Libby's cell phone. The device held a chilling secret, a video recording of a man approaching the girls on the bridge. His face was obscured, but his voice was clear. "Guys, down the hill." Those 4 words would haunt Holman for years to come. As the investigation unfolded, the community rallied together, desperate for answers. Posters of the suspect, a grainy image captured from Libby's phone, plastered every storefront. But as leads went cold and months turned into years, hope began to fade. The case consumed Holman. He pored over every detail, every statement, searching for the missing piece. The killer had to be someone local, someone who knew the area well enough to commit such a brazen act. But who, and why? The questions gnawed at him, keeping him awake night after night. As the investigation dragged on, a shadow seemed to fall over Delphi. Parents kept their children close, and the once bustling trails fell silent. The killer had not only taken 2 young lives but had also stolen the town's sense of security. Holman refused to let the case go cold. He retraced every step, re-interviewed every witness. And then a breakthrough, a tiny detail, overlooked in the initial investigation, caught his eye. It was a lead that would take him down a path he never expected, towards a suspect hiding in plain sight. Richard Allen, a 50-year-old pharmacy technician, had lived in Delphi for years. He was a familiar face in town, known for his quiet demeanor and unremarkable presence. But as Holman dug deeper, he uncovered a web of circumstantial evidence that pointed to Allen. The pieces began to fall into place, each revelation more chilling than the last. Allen had been at the bridge that day, a fact he had conveniently forgotten to mention during initial questioning. His voice, when compared to the audio from Libby's phone, was a near-perfect match. And then there was the matter of his hunting gear, strikingly similar to the outfit worn by the man on the bridge. As Holman built his case, he couldn't shake the feeling that they had been so close all along. The killer hadn't fled to some far-off place. He had been living among them, going about his daily life. The arrest of Richard Allen in October 2022 sent shockwaves through Delphi. How could someone they knew, someone they saw regularly, be capable of such a heinous act? As the case against Allen built, a disturbing picture began to emerge. He had allegedly stalked the trails for years, watching and waiting for the perfect opportunity. The murders of Abby and Libby weren't just a random act of violence, but a carefully planned attack. But even as answers began to surface, new questions arose. What had driven Allen to commit such a terrible crime? And had there been other victims? The investigation expanded, delving into Allen's past and examining cold cases from surrounding areas. For Holman, the arrest was bittersweet. Justice was finally within reach, but at what cost? 2 young lives had been cut tragically short, and a community had lost its innocence. As the case moved towards trial, The wounds of that February day were reopened. Abby and Libby's families relived their pain, their grief on display for the world to see. But amid the sorrow, there was a glimmer of hope. The girls' bravery in their final moments had been key to solving the case. Libby's decision to record their attacker had provided the crucial evidence needed to bring him to justice. As the trial date approached, Delphi braced itself for the media storm that would follow. The case had captured national attention, turning the small Indiana town into a symbol of both tragedy and resilience. For Holman, the upcoming trial represented the culmination of years of tireless work. But he knew that no verdict could ever truly bring closure to the families or the community. The scars left by the Delphi murders would remain, a somber reminder of the day two young girls went for a walk and never came home. As the trial began, the prosecution laid out their case against Richard Allen. The evidence was damning. DNA traces, the audio recording, and a trail of circumstantial evidence that painted a clear picture. Allen sat impassively in the courtroom, his face a mask of indifference as the details of his alleged crimes were recounted. But beneath that calm exterior, Holman sensed a turbulent mind, one capable of unspeakable acts. As witnesses took the stand, a pattern emerged. Allen had been hiding in plain sight for years, his mundane exterior concealing a predatory nature that had gone undetected by friends and neighbors alike. The defense attempted to poke holes in the prosecution's case, suggesting alternative suspects and timelines. But the weight of evidence against Allen was overwhelming. As the trial progressed, the courtroom became a battleground of emotions. Grief, anger, and a desperate need for justice permeated the air. Abby and Libby's families sat stoically, their pain etched deeply into their faces. Each piece of evidence, each recounting of that fateful day, was a fresh wound to their hearts. The most chilling moment came when the audio from Libby's phone was played in court. The girl's final recorded moments, filled with fear and confusion, brought many in the courtroom to tears. Allen's voice, commanding them down the hill, sent shivers through the assembled crowd. As the trial neared its conclusion, Holman reflected on the long journey that had led to this moment. The sleepless nights, the dead ends, the moments of despair when it seemed the case would never be solved. But through it all, the memory of Abby and Libby had driven him forward, demanding justice. The jury's deliberation was surprisingly brief. After years of investigation, months of preparation, and weeks of testimony, it took them only hours to reach a verdict. As the courtroom held its collective breath, the foreman stood to deliver the decision. Guilty on all counts. A wave of emotion swept through the room. Relief, vindication, and a bittersweet sense of closure. Richard Allen showed no reaction as the verdict was read, his face as impassive as ever. But Holman saw a flicker in his eyes, the realization that his freedom was gone forever. As Allen was led away in handcuffs, Holman turned to Abby and Libby's families. No words could ease their pain, but the knowledge that their daughter's killer would never walk free again brought some small comfort. In the days that followed, Delphi began the long process of healing. The old railroad bridge, once a place of terror, was transformed into a memorial for Abby and Libby. Their smiling faces now looked out over the creek, a reminder of the light they had brought to the world. For Holman, the end of the trial brought a mix of emotions. Relief at having finally brought the killer to justice, but also a lingering sadness for the lives lost. He knew that the case would stay with him forever, a defining moment in his career and his life. As he stood on the bridge one last time, looking out over the scene that had haunted him for years, Holman made a silent promise to Abby and Libby. Their story would not be forgotten. Their bravery in the face of unimaginable terror would be remembered, and their legacy would live on, inspiring others to fight for justice and to cherish every moment of life. As the sun set over Delphi, casting long shadows across the bridge, Holman turned to leave. The case was closed, but its impact would ripple through time, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the most unexpected places, and the light that can shine even in the darkest of moments. The Delphi murders had changed the town forever, But from tragedy had come a renewed sense of community and purpose. Abby and Libby's memory would live on, a testament to the enduring power of hope and the unbreakable bonds of love. And as Delphi looked to the future, it carried with it the lessons learned from its darkest chapter, determined to honor the memory of two young girls whose lives had been cut tragically short, but whose spirit would forever be a part of the town's legacy.